They say there's been many wars, but there has been some that are so unique, and there's some that are so much more in-depth than others. And this war is no different. This is the Kingdom Hearts character tier list. This is a video that I'm sure none of you thought I was going to do, which is, of course, the Kingdom Hearts character tier list. I've seen a lot of people talk about doing stuff like this, and they've built their lists and stuff like that, and it's like, I'm afraid to start one, because I know once I start into one, it's gonna hurt. I know it's gonna hurt a lot of people, and rightfully so, rightfully so. And before we get into the tier list itself, I feel like I want to go ahead and explain a couple of things. Number one, I have, in fact, been up to date with Kingdom Hearts story content, being that of course, Union Cross / Dark Road. Now, at the time of this video, technically Dark Road is supposed to be announced for its full-on release. As to when that's going to happen, it's been kind of slow, unfortunately. So we have no idea when or where or for how much longer it will be before we finally get that ultimate story in Dark Road that we have been promised. And as of right now, these are all the characters of the entire series. The entire series, including from 1 to 3 to Union Cross and Dark Road, so on and so forth. And these are, of course, the main characters. We're not going to include Disney characters or Final Fantasy characters. That would take too long, unfortunately. So instead, we're mostly going to be concentrating on the main character cast for Kingdom Hearts. So, real quickly, let's go ahead and show you the character listing per se. It's not a hefty list, admittedly, but for the most part, the characters that you would presume are there are, of course, there and present. And I will give detail as to why I would rank them, as so on and so forth. But for the time being right now, I feel like I need to explain even further by talking about the tier list per se. So in terms of the tier list, you have, of course, the obvious, S being the top favorite, A, B, C, and D. E, however, though, I'm going to label it a little bit differently. So let me go ahead and just rename that as question mark, question mark, question mark. Now, there's a reason why I'm labeling that as question mark, question mark, question mark, is because of two main factors. Factor number one is that I don't know enough about the character in order to go on to figure out, okay, do I like this character, do I not like it, so on and so forth. So it's one of those things where, unfortunately, we're not given a lot of detail of that character. And I feel like, in my particular standing, preferably, I feel like we're going to have that selection necessary, especially for some of these characters. So let's go ahead and start off with some of the easier ones, for example, Dark Road, as well as Union Cross characters. So we'll get those out of the way real quickly. We'll start off with, of course, the classmates, the individual classmates of Dark Road. These will unfortunately be put into the question mark tier. I know a little bit in regards to who they are, but as to like their character, as to how they represent towards like Xehanort or even Ericus for that matter, there's not a lot to go on with that. As far as we know, we don't even know if they were killed or if they're alive. If you don't know, in Union Cross, you see Xehanort as well as Ericus at a cemetery. And it's hard to say as to who they are. It was not given any detail, it wasn't given any context, it was just stated that they had died somehow. So we don't know. We're still on the fence of like, are they in fact the classmates or are they the other classmates? So it's hard to say right now, but I hope that eventually we will get further detail as to like, okay, how do these characters involve with and everything like that nature. So another character is Odin, who happens to be the teacher. He is literally going to be in the front of the group of students of question mark, question mark, question mark. And the reason why is because we only know he is, of course, a teacher. That's all we know. That's all we actually know, sadly. We don't even know how much detail. We don't even know who he's related to. We don't even know if there's any direct context or direct connections to him. He's just a teacher. So he is, of course, a question mark character as well, sadly. But now we go on into Union Cross's story. Eventually, I would like to explain the full story of Union Cross in my own way. But for the time being right now, you're just going to have to try to keep up with me as to what I'm trying to explain. So, Union Cross character number 1, Skull. Skull becomes like the second friend to the main character of Union Cross. And the reason why she ends up being kind of your second friend is because she ends up following a dream that she had about another character known as Ephemera. Ephemera is actually the first best friend that the main character go in connection with. So, naturally, she was told by Ephemera to go and find the main character and to be with him and everything like that. So that's what she has done. And so she kind of becomes the second best friend to the main character. In terms of the connections, I definitely like her. I like her pretty well. Is it enough to say that she's recognizable? She's a key character into the future series, per se. As to how much in depth, sadly, we don't know. In fact, the sad thing is, towards the end of Union Cross, it's not mentioned as to, like, what her whereabouts is. We're told as to, like, the other characters, but we're not exactly told as to, like, what happened to her specifically, per se. So, unfortunately, it's kind of open and everything. We don't really know what goes on. We don't know what's going to happen. We just know that she used to exist at some point in time, and then all of a sudden she just kind of went missing. So for the time being right now, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to put her into the C tier list. I do like her character. I do hope we get some more explanation, and hopefully a reunion arc for the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross characters. We still don't know any more details, sadly. However, the next character to talk about is Shriliza. Shriliza is a character that appears in Union Cross. Funnily enough, in the story, she was supposed to be part of the main Dandelion group leaders. It never happened, and instead, Vanitas ends up being a group leader instead. Won't go into deep detail, but unfortunately she was pronounced dead. Or so we thought. We don't know what all goes on. We don't know what is going to be explained to us. We do know, however, that something is going to happen in regards to this story. As to how deep it's going to go, there's no telling. But for the time being right now, Shriliza, she actually has like this distant connection to the main character. She watches him or her, depending on your character creation, of course, from afar. So it's not sure as to, like, how far in depth the character is. If nothing else, she was kind of shy to talk to that person, and so she kind of remained her distance from afar. And it's one of those things where it's like, I kind of wanted to see where that would have led into, but unfortunately, it never led up to anything, sadly. And unfortunately, it ended on her death. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to put Shriliza in D. Not to say she was a bad character, but unfortunately, we don't know that much as to like what's going to happen in the future of the series. I wish we would know, but for the time being right now, we don't know. The next character, again, another Union Cross character, is Brain. Brain is a little bit unique character, actually. He's what you would call the critical thinker of the group of Dandelion leaders. And I have to say, I was actually quite impressed with the dialogue continuing with Brain. It turns out Brain was chosen to keep track of not only the Union Cross leaders, but also to keep track of what was going to happen in future events. In Union Cross's story, the Keyblade War happened, but the Dandelions was to rise up in order to help save everyone and try to escape the disaster of the Keyblade War and stuff. And so he was given the Book of Prophecies from Ava in order to kind of help things along and stuff of that nature. And of course, the Book of Prophecies, being as vague as all get at, is trying to interpret how to do things. And Brain was able to circle around several obstacles considering where they were at and what was going on. They were actually in a digital version of a world that they were in originally. And again, I would like to go into full detail of the story of Union Cross. It is a big story compilation, and trust me, we don't have time to talk about all of it. So for the time being right now, in terms of Brain, he's pretty creative. He's pretty critical thinking. Although there have been some cases in the story where he doesn't really show interest in wanting to do things, but whenever he becomes a Dandelion leader, he all of a sudden takes charge of figuring out all these different things and trying to figure out, okay, how can I help people? How can I save people, because he realizes what's going to happen, and according to the Book of Prophecies, he's trying to play through it in order to save everyone, but unfortunately, he's not sure how to go about it himself. So, I feel like Brain is a little bit better character build in Union Cross since the Dandelion chapter started, and I felt like we have a little bit better understanding, but towards the end, oh gosh, we don't even know where this is going to end up. I want to put him in B, but yeah, I'll put him in B. He's going to be a B character. Now we go on to the character known as Ephemera. Ephemera, most people are familiar with because of Kingdom Hearts 3. He only showed up for just a brief moment of time, but he's a big piece in Union Cross's story. He interacts with the main character. He's also one of the leaders of the Dandelion leader that Ava has chosen, and he's played a big part. He's a big part of the story. In fact, towards the end of Union Cross's storyline, it was mentioned of how Ephemera is the founder of another world that people are familiar with, known as Scala Ecalum. And it's interesting to know that. So in other words, technically in terms of story length of Ephemera, we may get several references coming back and forth, but in terms of the continuing story, technically he is no longer alive. For all we know, keep in mind, Nomura has a habit of changing the story a lot. So for all we know, there may be another time portal that Ephemera is able to travel through. Maybe not. Maybe there's like a story segment that we could explore that involves Ephemera in the creation of Scala Ecalum, but we don't know yet. As of right now, that story is unknown to us. But in terms of character build, we do actually have a little bit of interaction with Ephemera. We know that he's very caring, he wants to help everyone, he's trying to save everyone and stuff like that, being restricted as to what he can and can't do, but he still cares enough to want to help people regardless. And he kind of has his own like redemption arc, if you will, towards the end, because in the Union Cross first segment of the game series is the fact that Ephemera disappears and the main character is kind of worried as to like what happened to Ephemera. And then after the Dandelion chapter started, Ephemera kind of redeemed himself to kind of help the main character out a little bit more and more, you know. So in a way, I kind of like him a little bit. Not enough to where it kind of overlaps Skull. Again, mostly because Skull is a relevant character that we don't know, and it could be a character of interest that we could see in the near future. But as to like how impactful Ephemera is going to be into the story looking forward, it's not going to be that effective, I imagine. But he's still going to be a C tier along next to Skull. Now we can get on to the Union leaders, the Union Cross leaders themselves. So I'm afraid that I can't remember all of the characters, all their names that is per se. I only remember the main characters. I just know Ava, which is the fox character looking one, and Ace, I believe, is the bear looking one. I do know each of their roles as to what they were supposed to do and stuff like that. You have the Unicorn Union leader. He's basically the one who's in charge of everything and stuff like that, looks over everything and stuff like that. But he's the one that, for the most part, he has a big interest in trying to figure out the Book of Prophecies, you know, from reading the book and stuff like that, and he's trying to prevent the end of all time, trying to prevent the end from happening, preventing darkness from consuming and stuff like that. And so with that, he is led into this little deception of like, maybe there's something he can do. He is back technically. Him and 3 others have returned it by the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So as to what his story is going to be, it's mostly going to be on towards the opposite side against the main cast characters, Sora and them, whenever everything ties up and stuff like that. As to how that's going to be, we don't know. How he's there, we don't know. Again, it's kind of all up in the air and stuff. So for the time being, I want to put him in C, which I will. We then have the Serpent character. I don't know her name. I'm sure some of you are going to hate me later on this one. But she plays a significant role as like the ears of the group. Whatever everyone is thinking, she relays it back to the leader of the Union Cross leaders. And so that's basically her job. We don't really get that much character building, sadly. So she's going to be a D tier character list for the time being. I believe they label it as Ursura, but it's the bear, basically. He's not too bad, but he's also basically pure strength. So naturally, he's kind of a basically a whole bag of bricks, hard to take down, but not much you can do with him. So, and he's mostly in charge of trying to keep the leader straightened out, but he's also trying to figure out who the traitor is and stuff. So, naturally speaking, he's just daft. So, again, we're going to put him as a D-tier list character. Then we have this guy here. The leopard character. So, he's given a secret page of the Book of Prophecies that none of the other characters are given. That being said, that page is basically given details as to the possibility of who the traitor might be. And that page alone is what kind of drives the entire party separated from everything else. He's the only one that's given the secret page of the entire Book of Prophecies. Everyone has their own copy except for Lushu, but he's the only one of the group that has a secret page entry that none of the other characters actually have. And his is basically, of course, looking at the traitor, and of course he's trying to figure out who the traitor is, so on and so forth, and leads on to this big old fight. So he's kind of a detailed character, much like the unicorn leader. So I'll say that much. I will say that much. Ava, on the other hand, and this is why I remember her name so easily. Number one, it's easy to pronounce. But also, two, she plays a big significant role in the series looking forward, especially considering the fact that she is the only one of the four that does not appear alongside with Lushu and the other four Union leaders. So with that being said, it's kind of unsure as to what happened to her or why she hasn't reappeared. But she has played her role to a point to where she basically creates the dandelions, she created the dandelion leaders, she's given a blueprint road as to what's going to happen with the key events in the Book of Prophecy, so on and so forth. If nothing else, she has carried her role throughout. There is no telling if she will have a reappearance or if she is done. You know, much like with Ephemera, we don't know if he's completely done, but as far as we know, his storyline stops at Kingdom Hearts 3, helping Sora, and Ava's story has ended in Union Cross's storyline after the Dandelion leaders eventually leave the Dale world and stuff of that nature. But I would label her as kind of a potential, I don't want to say an A, but definitely a B candidate. I want to say that because, again, her actions sort of developed into how the Dandelion leaders got created and stuff like that. So there's that. Now let's talk about Cherith, basically the Toad of the Kingdom Hearts story. So Cherith is a Dream Eater character, a spirit, a Dream Eater character. Now, Cherith, there are a multitude of Cheriths. You have the Cheriths of individual players, and then you have the Cherith that sticks alongside with you, the main character. Then you have the Cherith that we are familiar in Kingdom Hearts 3, which is a possibility of the Cherith that is connected to Ventus. So, it's hard to say as to which character we should concentrate on. Let's first talk about the persona of the Cherith. It's a cheerful little character, always there to help the player / characters and all that stuff, give them details and stuff. And as a character in Kingdom Hearts 3, it been mostly helping Sora trying to get out of what I would call the Nexus realm of the Kingdom Hearts series. Essentially the afterlife where all the hearts come to and stuff like that. Of course, Sora ends up being there, but he was able to get out of it, escape it, in order to help his friends, in order to go back into the Keyblade War and everything of that nature. As for a character depth, as of right now, there's not much to go on as of right now. It's hard to say if it will continue after Kingdom Hearts 3 and Dream Drop Distance story. It's hard to say if it will continue from here on out. So I want to say it's probably going to be... do I really want to put it as D? No, it's a little bit more handier. Well, I don't know. See, here's the thing. Cherith, again, like I said, is a Dream Eater. Towards the end of Union Cross's segment, in terms of the story explanation and stuff of that nature, it is explained that all of the individual people, children, basically, that did not survive the crash of the Daybreak Town's data version went into sleep thanks to the Cherisi, and they all became the individual Dream Eaters. The Dream Eaters that Sora and Riku can use in Dream Drop Distance. In other words, the Cherisi evolutionized into the individual Dream Eaters that we are familiar with in Dream Drop Distance. So, yeah. All those spirits that you're familiar with, people, those are children that were possibly dead thanks to the Keyblade Graveyard and thanks to the Keyblade War of Union Cross. So, yeah. One final character to talk about in terms of the Union Cross cast characters / main character, which there are others technically we'll get back to once we get there. But we're going to be talking about the Master of Master. I have a eye on him. Now that's a joke, but also as a literal term, because the Master of Master has done a lot of development in Union Cross. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I know him from back cover and stuff like that. No, Union Cross goes way deep. Way deeper. Deeper than you could ever possibly imagine. Again, another whole story segment to explain, but this guy is driven mad. This guy is driven mad just to destroy the essence of darkness, to destroy darkness itself. Now here's the thing, we're familiar with darkness in Kingdom Hearts as like an entity of an element and stuff like that. No, there's another darkness, a darkness enemy, a darkness presence, a darkness that has threatened the Master of Master, and the Master of Master is driven mad, insane, to do anything to get rid of darkness itself. Again, it's a whole story implementation, and it's hard to go into details of it, but his main goal is to destroy darkness itself. When he will achieve this goal, and how he's going to achieve this goal, is still a little bit up in the air right now, but we have an idea as to what could be the future of Kingdom Hearts, thanks to Union Cross's elaborate event explanation of the Master of Master, as to what goes on in his head. I mean, I kid you not, he has literally, whatever Master Xehanort has done, the Master of Master has probably done 10 times more, if not 100 times, depending on how you want to calculate that. Because, I mean, oh my gosh. Oh, the depth of the story of Master Master is nuts. So I'm going to put him as definitely a character. I may change my mind and put him as S, but he is definitely an A character because of how vastly invested I am with this character. I want to know more about him. It's much like that drive of Master Xehanort, where the second you discover who he is and what all he's done, you are like dead set. It's like a dedication of like, I want to fight this guy. He's been the bane of my existence the entire series, and even more so knowing what the Master of Master is. So again, if you're familiar with the Union Cross storyline, you would know exactly why he would be an A. In fact, for some people, he would be a potential S. But until we know where the series is going to go from here on out, I am going to put him as an A. And maybe, again, as we continue discussing it, I may put him as S. But he is definitely an A character. That is, for the moment, all the Union Cross story cast characters thus far. Now we can get on to the main character cast. Starting with, of course, our main man, Sora. Of course I'm going to talk about our main man, Sora. Why would I not do that? So Sora, he's a great guy. He's cool, right? And everything like that. He's a goofball, too. But dadgummit, if you don't put him as an S, for crying out loud already, who are you, right? Sora is the main character of the entire series. Even though, yes, there's been several spin-off series where we're not as Sora. You know, never mind Days, never mind Burst by Sleep, never mind technically Recoded. It's not the Sora that we're familiar with, it's a data Sora. But Sora, nonetheless, we have been familiar with. We've traveled through the entire series as Sora and kind of discovered who he is, and we kind of discovered everything about him, and we've went through the journey with him. So our persona as to like what we've went through the entire game series is related to that of Sora, where everything that's been going on through the entire series has went over our heads. I kid you not, everything that's happened through the entire series, Sora is like, what? So it's like this invisible storytelling that most of us had tried piecing together. Some of us have succeeded, some of us are still trying to figure it out. Sora is like, phew, what just happened? I mean, seriously, Sora is a great character. He does everything to try to help everyone. He's always happy and cheerful, and every single time you look at him, you always see his goofball smile, you know? There's rarely a time where he's sad or angry, but if he is, it's mostly because something's happened to somebody else that he's connected to. Now let's go down the list of characters from there on out. For example, Riku! Where are you? Ah, there you are, Riku. I think we all can agree Riku has had a hell of a story. Hell of a story. Next to Sora and everything like that, Riku has definitely had a downward slope and then an uphill build-up from there. Because Kingdom Hearts 1, he's basically been a douche to Sora. A complete asshole, if you will. By the time end of Kingdom Hearts 1, he realized what he has just done, what he did, and stuff like that. And he's trying to rebuild himself back up, and even more so in Chain of Memories, in Days, and then in Kingdom Hearts 2, it kind of really peaks up from there. And then Dream Drop Distance carries it over, and then Kingdom Hearts 3 finishes off. I think we're finally seeing the redemption arc of Riku, as well as see Riku mature. I think we can all agree that Riku has definitely had a character building moment in the series. From Kingdom Hearts 2 on up to Kingdom Hearts 3. It has been a build up. But I'm going to have to say this. I'm just going to put him as A. He's definitely been a key character to Sora as a best friend. We definitely can see that clear as day. But in terms of like what he has done and what he has been building up to and stuff like that, it's hard to kind of overpower Sora, but Riku has definitely built up into a reputation of how great of a character he has become. Now we come to Kyrie. Oh boy. Okay, I think it's time now we talk about the elephant in the room, and that is poor little Kyrie. And I say poor little Kyrie because of the shit she has to put up with the entire series. Seriously. She had lost her heart in Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts 2, she was kidnapped. Burst by sleep. As a kid, as a child, she was threatened by all sorts of random weird creatures in Radiant Garden. And then in Kingdom Hearts 3, all that build up of her learning how to become a Keyblader and everything like that, trying to learn her abilities and stuff like that. In Kingdom Hearts 3, she get kidnapped again. I was actually hoping that she would kick butt, but the way the story played out, they just kind of went, oh, she tried to learn how to be a Keyblade Master, and then she just went fall face first on her face. It's like, what? I mean, I'm the only one probably out there that didn't really give an emotional feel when Xehanort slashed his Keyblade to Kyrie and she just shattered. And it's like, was that really necessary? I mean, apparently it was, because it motivated Sora to attack Xehanort. But I mean, really, that was your main course of action. Now, record, we did get that cool sequence of fighting as Kyrie in Remine. And she's I want to say, as of right now, she is going to start building her character in Melody of Memory. Melody of Memory is basically the start of her character arc at this point in time. Throughout the entire series, she has basically said that she wants to help Sora. She says she wants to help defend Sora, to protect him, because of all the things Sora has done for her and stuff. This is the point, however, though, where Kyrie is going to try to build up her redemption arc now. We are now at the point where she is trying to build up herself in order to finally save Sora. How that's going to play out, I don't know. What I do know for a fact, though, is this. That unfortunately, Kyrie has not done well throughout the series as being a person who has built up her persona. Whereas Sora and Riku has done well, Kyrie has fallen short, sadly. And this is the part where people are going to hate me. People are going to be like, don't do this, don't do this. And it's like, I'm going to do it, guys. Kyrie is sadly going to be put into B tier. Now, I hope that after Melody of Memory, she will start picking up from there, and maybe, who knows, maybe we might go for Final Fantasy X-2 scenario, where all of a sudden she's able to turn her Keyblade into dual-wielding Keyblades or whatever, kick major butt or something, I don't know. I want to see her finally get redemption here. She's really had a troubled history so far, and I really want her to kick butt next time. So with that being said, now let's move on to a next group of characters, known as the Twilight Brigade, the Twilight Group, Xehanort, Pence, and Olette. Xehanort is essentially the leader of the trio, but he's also kind of a sleazy goofball as well. It's hard to say if a character build was ever made. If nothing else, it was definitely noted whenever he realized that, hey, Sora needs our help to try to find a way to help Roxas, even though technically we have no allegation of knowing who Roxas is. The fact that technically a photo of us exists with Roxas, maybe we are destined to be friends with Roxas. And despite all the things that's happened, they end up being friends with Roxas. And it's interesting. So I want to give Xehanort and Olette and put them in like the B category as well. But Pence is essentially the big keeper, the big character that kind of peaks up because of what he does. So in Kingdom Hearts 2, he was basically the one programming the computer in order to get Sora into this alternate world to get to the world that never was. In Kingdom Hearts 3, he also played a significant role in helping connect Sora with Sexion, also known as Ezio? No, Enzo. That's what it is. It Enzo? I'm having trouble keeping up with names. That's not good. You get what I'm saying. But I want to say he played a big role, bigger than Xehanort and Olette for that matter. He doesn't get recognized a lot, despite what he has done so far. You know, he's been a very crucial help, really. And I hope we get a little bit more build-up in the future series again. But for the time being right now, I want to put him at A, but really, how can you separate those three? Those three are always together. Those three are always hanging out. And really, in all honesty, why not just keep them at B? They're right there in categories of characters that are crucial to Sora, but not quite the main peak of main character building per se. Now then, who do we want to pick next? Let's go with Nominee. Poor Nominee. She was almost left out of Kingdom Hearts 3 entirely, but she was able to kind of be like the little cherry on top, the little finishing touch and everything like that. She's got her own physical body now. She's no longer just a memory. She's no longer an essence of anyone. She's her own physical being now. She did play a little bit significant, heavier role in Kingdom Hearts 3 Remine, but not much further. So sadly, and I'd hate to do this to Nominee, the poor girl. She's finally getting her Bring Our character made, so that's good to know. But I'm going to have to put her as C. Again, she plays a significant role in Chain of Memories, but then after Chain of Memories, she's just kind of like a shallow reminiscence and stuff. And not to say that that's a bad thing, but it's hard to say how much to build with Nominee whenever her main role was to mess with Sora's memories. The organization used her. Kingdom Hearts 2, she was treated poorly by Diz, for that matter. Again, her main role was to mess with Sora's memory, and so she was using her ability to build up Sora's memories back to where he can wake up again and stuff. Again, not a heavy build-up, but hey, it's close, right? Now then, let's talk about the Seesaw Trio, as they're called. The Seesaw Trio. Roxas, Axel, and Shion. Let's start with Roxas, shall we? I'm not even going to say, you guys should know why, but if you don't know why, Roxas is a badass. Roxas is a badass character. Ever since I first saw him in Kingdom Hearts 2, he'd been a badass. He peaked up whenever he revealed his 2 Keyblades, and then whenever he donned the organization robe and revealed himself as being the 13th organization member, the Keys of Destiny and stuff like that. He's been a badass character. But that's only because of what he's had to go through in Days. Days, he's had a hell of a time going through and stuff. And this guy, he's almost as I wouldn't say he's gullible, but he's almost as like relatable to like how Sora is and even Ephemera, where he treasures his friends, and being at the organization members as who they are and stuff like that, the fact that he was able to draw a connection with nobodies like Axel, and even more so with Shion, what was her being a replica and everything like that, and what has happened, he's don't mess with Roxas. So next up we have Axel. S tier as well. I love Axel. Also too, we're also going to relate to Axel as well as Lee as well. I love his character. I love that character. The knucklehead, crazy as suicidal maniac, I want to say. The guy who just goes in blindly and stuff like that. He knows what he wants to do, but he doesn't know how to go about it and stuff. And to have that kind of realization in Kingdom Hearts 3 where, you know, yeah, he's got a Keyblade. He's able to use a Keyblade. The reality is not really a Keyblade. It was just something that Axel was able to forge himself, which is pretty incredible. The fact that he was able to forge what looked like a Keyblade, not really a Keyblade, functions like a Keyblade. So, I mean, Axel pulled his weight. He tried pulling his weight. And oh my gosh, that weight is a ton of baggage. Oh, poor Axel. Fact that he has to go through so much trying to remember what he has done, what he did, and everything like that, trying to help his friends, for example, Roxas and Shion, trying to help his new coordinate friends like Sora, Riku, Kyrie, and all them, trying to get back with Isa/Psyx. So, I mean, he's had a load of emotional baggage that he had to carry himself. So, poor Axel. But I love the guy. I love him too much. Now we have Shion. Shion, again, her only character building was, of course, in Days. But what they've built was essentially a character to go alongside with Roxas. And unfortunately for Shion, she had been bullied, oh my gosh, by Organization 13. Mostly because they didn't know how well she would pull through. In fact, literally from the get-go, they literally was pitting her against Roxas to see which one would be the superior Keyblade wielder of the organization. They were hoping to create two, but the reality was there were never supposed to be a 14th member. There was always going to be 13. And they was either going to keep Roxas, or they were going to replace Roxas and have Shion, being a separate candidate of Sora, but have a Keyblade wielder regardless. That's literally what she was. And she was finally able to peak up in Kingdom Hearts 3, even though it wasn't really mentioned much as to like the development between why they chose her as their new Organization 13. And it's hard to say as to like what had happened whenever she was able to regain her memories of who she was and stuff. But it triggered and she was able to come back into realization and stuff like that. So you could say it's thanks to the organization that she became Existence again. But then there was also a counterpoint where Sora interacted and she was able to regain herself as well. Again, it's hard to explain how that happened. It's sad to say because I want her to be an A, but really she's more of a B, sadly. And I don't mean that to be mean, I'm just saying it as that's what she was. Replica Riku. I did not think we were going to see him again. I really didn't. A lot of people thought we would, and as trailers was coming out, it was becoming more realistic that Replica Riku would make a reappearance, and it was definitely more so. I think he had a redemption arc in Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 was all about redemption. But to see Replica Riku get back and everything like that, trying to help out towards the end and stuff, it was really interesting. I was really glad to see that Replica Riku, despite him being a replica of Riku, a replica clone, if you will, created by Vexen and everything like that, despite what had happened, he delivered. He delivered, in my opinion. So I want to say that he is also a B tier character as well. Despite how little he has done, he's done pretty good at building up for what he is and stuff like that. So now let's go on into Ansem. Let's do Ansem first real quickly before we go into like Burst by Sleep, so on and so forth, because he was in Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. He was also in Kingdom Hearts 2 and all this stuff. So Ansem, essentially the guy that started this whole mess, possibly next to Master Xehanort. This guy basically did a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have done. He done a lot of research that should not have been dealt with. And he's messed with a lot of people's lives in Kingdom Hearts 2, all for the sake of revenge against his apprentice. But he kind of was trying to rebuild redemption in Kingdom Hearts 3, trying to rebuild himself. So I can kind of see where he was going with and stuff like that. But unfortunately, he's kind of a C character for me as well. Now let's go on to the main cast. Let's go on into Burst by Sleep. Let's finally go into Burst by Sleep. Let's do Ventus. Let's talk about him, shall we? From Burst by Sleep, he's just a guy who wants to be friend with everybody. Basically, almost as bad as Sora as being that one guy. He doesn't really do much of anything. I know in Burst by Sleep, he left Land of Departure in order to help Terra and stuff like that. But, you know, what with how Burst by Sleep ended up and stuff like that, it really didn't do much of anything. Kingdom Hearts 3, he did quite a bit, not enough to where it would matter, I feel. But he was an alright character, I felt like. He was alright. He was just there. He did play a significant role, but it was still nice to see Aqua be regrouped with Ven, and it was still nice to see the Burst by Sleep trio be brought back and everything like that. Or the Wayfinder trio, whatever way you want to call them. But I think I'm going to put Ven as a C character. I know some people may feel different about it, but I feel like I want to do that. Now let's talk about Terra. Terra, I think, is a B character. He is essentially the Anakin of the group. He truly is the Anakin of the group, you know? He yields to darkness. He accidentally goes so far into darkness that Xehanort was able to easily take over and stuff like that. And he's went through an entire series as a shadow of his former self, trying to free himself in order to help his friend right at the last minute. And I want to say he did pretty good. I think he's pretty good. Again, I know some people may feel indifferent, but I feel like he's a B tier character. I feel like he is a B tier. Now we talk about Aqua. Aqua, an easy S tier for me personally. We have been with Aqua pretty much a pretty good longevity of the journey, next to Burst by Sleep, and then you got the Burst by Sleep secret episode. Then we have 0.2 Fragmentary Passage story. She has been in darkness for 10 flippin' years. 10 years, can you believe that? In darkness. She has pulled her strength through and through in order to muster up against darkness. And all it took was frickin' Ansem Seeker of Darkness to push her into the ocean. But I have to say, she really is a master Keyblade master. I hope we see a little bit more of her becoming a master in the future series, because really, after she became anointed as master, we really didn't feel like she was a master up until she kind of rebuilt Castle Oblivion into Land of Departure again. We didn't really see her become much of a master up until that point. And then after that, it kind of went downward to being a normal character and stuff like that. So I hope from here on out, we'll see her being recognized more as a master. But she's my favorite girl. She's my favorite girl. She's awesome. She's lovable. I love her. She's too much. I love her. That's why she's an S tier, just because I love her. Okay, now that we're done with that part, now we finally get down to, we gotta talk about Ericus. We gotta talk about the teacher Ericus. We gotta talk about Ericus. Mark Hamill as Ericus. That was definitely one choice that I did not think of, but yeah. Let's put it this way, in Kingdom Hearts Burst by Sleep, he definitely was a teacher, but he also yielded to the light heavy. We're talking about religiously, he was into the light. He was staying into the light. He did not care. He stick to that light as hard as he could. And almost killed Ven and Terra in the process of it. Record, he admitted his fault, but at the same time, to see what almost drove him mad to hate darkness so much, almost as bad as a Master once you think about it. But yeah, he just, oh gosh. But he then reappears in Kingdom Hearts 3, which, by the way, that was quite a sneaky move right there. He put a portion of himself inside Terra in order to help defend him in some form of way, and was able to come back in order to reunite with Master Xehanort. That was an interesting thing to see. So I want to put him as C. I'm going to put him as C. He's pretty good, but again, doesn't really build up much in terms of the character building spectrum, say. Now we can finally talk about other organization members as well as potential other stuff. So let's talk about some of the other individual characters that are either used to be or was organization members. So let's start off with Zalden, aka I believe is Daniel Zalden, either way. So in terms of his somebody self, he doesn't really have an impact. Or at least I don't feel like he has an impact, but as an organization member, oh, he had an impact. Oh, he was the organization member that I hated the most. Not just in terms of him being the boss that I couldn't beat in my younger years, but in terms of a character that was developed as an organization member. He saw Beast as a potential nobody that they could build, and so he cemented Beast into anger more than what Beast normally is anyway, but delved him deeper into anger and hate in the hopes that he would create a powerful Heartless and a powerful nobody. Zalden's a dick. He's a dick. So I'm just gonna put him in the D category. A lot of people are going to be like, really? You're going to put him in the D category just because of what his nobody self did? Again, he didn't really have much of an impact as a somebody. He was just a guard. But as a nobody, you talk about some hate. Oh, you talk about some hate. Now then, let's talk about the next one, which is Lexius, which I don't know his somebody name, but it's Lexius, the silent hero. Again, doesn't have much of an impact as a somebody. He definitely has a little bit more, I suppose, appearance. But much like with Zalden, with his somebody wasn't really much to go on. He didn't really have much in terms of building. His nobody, sad to say, his didn't really have that much of an impact either. He did have some form of character, but again, it's all just kind of like this all the time, you know, where he's just kind of standing in the corner, being silent and stuff, and it's like, not much to go on. Where any form of interaction we have, I only remember strongly whenever Riku fought Lexius in Castle Oblivion. That's the only time that ever peaked up as a character. So for me, he's definitely a D character as well. He's pretty entertaining to fight in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, but as a character build, there was nothing there, much like with Zalden. Demx. I want to go ahead and talk about Demx because he was potentially a member. He was in the first organization set. In the second one, he was a potential candidate, but then they benched him. So he really didn't play much. He's definitely a character that a lot of people recognize and a lot of people know, but unfortunately, we don't really know much anymore about Demix, aside from him being an organization member and him playing on his guitar. That's all we really know. And there was a potential ideal that him, along with Luxord, was also members of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross's story as well. But we never saw appearance of them. We never saw appearance of either one of them. So we really don't know who Demix was. Demix is a potential unknown character. We don't know if we could see a build-up. We don't know if there's a potential lead to anything. But he's a pretty chill character. He's definitely in that C category of the character as well. So, let's see. Sexion's somebody name. Technically, I used to know Enzo. I believe it is Enzo. I don't know why. Evans Fexens. Okay, I thought Fexen's name was something else. It's Evans, technically. Enzo. That's his name. That's Sexion's somebody name. Enzo. Again, this is actually reverse in his case. His note buddy played a very small, somewhat role in Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories at Castle Oblivion. It played somewhat of a small role, a little bit bigger than Lexius, admittedly. In Kingdom Hearts 3, however, though, he had a deep character build, where he was helping Sora, he was trying to figure out what was going on, trying to figure out what's been happening, stuff like that, and kind of conducting research on his own of the heart as well, kind of almost following in his master footsteps, being that of Master Ansem, the Wise, of course. So, he's a pretty cool character. I kind of like him pretty well. Not enough to where he's a B character, but enough to where he's right next to Demx as well. So now let's talk about Vexen, also known as Evan. He almost became an organization member for the second stage of Organization 13. Did not happen. He ended up turning a whole new leaf and just wanted to join up with Ansem the Wise in this redemption arc. So, it's hard to say if Evan did that. It's hard to say right now. In fact, I'm not even sure if he's back to being normal. He still has the golden eyes. Because he had blue eyes. But then when he became Norded, he had the golden eyes. So, it's hard to say if it's redeemable right now. Right now, I'm just going to put him as... now that I think about it. Because see, his assistant was, of course, him that started the whole Replica program. So because of him, we have Shion and Replica Riku. But do I like him enough to where he would be B? No. He's going to be C. Now that I think about it, we have a lot of C category characters, so I did not realize that there were that many characters that I was like, on, you know? Oh boy. Alright, so let's go on ahead. Let's continue on, shall we? So, which order should we go? Backwards or forwards of Organization 13? You know what? Let's just go forward. Let's start with the first rank, being that of Master Xehanort. S. I mean, if you've watched my Kingdom Hearts 3 review of this, you'll know I have a deep, passionate urge talking about Master Xehanort. I have talked about him. I love his character arc. I love the character build despite him being the villain. Oh my gosh, you talk about a genius maniac here. He planned it for everything. He was a tactical genius in the entire Scope series. Holy crap, was he nuts. But I have to say, it was really nicely well done. It's one of those things where you build up the story and everything like that, and then you peak up just right, and it finishes off perfectly, in my personal opinion. I feel like Master Xehanort was a key character building of how to build a villain, how to build the perfect villain. You kind of connect certain dots into a main origin, and then you let that burst. And once that burst happens, that's whenever everything is focused on that crucial detail, and it goes from there. It's just, oh, it's so good. I love Master Xehanort. I swear, if after Nominee they build a Master Xehanort bring our figure, I'm buying that. I do not care if he's a villain. I'm going to buy that, because he is my personal favorite out of the entire Kingdom Hearts series. Now, let's talk about the next one. Let's talk about Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness. How to go about this. So, throughout the majority of the series, we're familiar with his secondary voice actor and everything like that. But then we also got the first voice actor. I keep forgetting names, so you're going to have to forgive me on this one. But in terms of the first official voice actor for Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, that was spot on perfect in my personal opinion. From there, though, the secondary character, Richard, I believe, Billy Zane was the first one, and then Richard something or other, was the secondary voice actor for him. But he's definitely built up in terms of how to display himself as Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness. He's really done well. He done really well, in my personal opinion, in Kingdom Hearts 3. It felt more cemented in Kingdom Hearts 3. Not Birth by Sleep. Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, you felt a little bit more put into it, but definitely in Kingdom Hearts 3 has he cemented himself as like, yes, I am a core character, I am cemented into Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, I am fully invested in it, you know? In Kingdom Hearts 2, it was just a joke. It was just a joke, but that's voice actor. How about the character himself? Oh boy. What started off as like the main villain of Kingdom Hearts 1 only became a partial character throughout the entire series. And Oh, as he lingered in Riku's shadow for ages. Oh, poor Riku has been taunted by this man. Oh, man. Oh, but personally, because of that, I'm going to put him as an A character. He is, not S, get over here. There we go. A character. He is an A tier character in my personal opinion. He's literally built up to that point. Now, let's talk about Zemnes. Zemnes, which is interesting because it's an anagram of Ansem with the letter X in it. Interesting, isn't it? Right? I mean, makes sense. Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. Zemnes, Leader of the Nobodies. So anyway, Zemnes. What do I think of Zemnes? I have to say, he has maintained his prowess as a potential threat in the organization. He has cemented himself. He was the leader of Organization 13, and even though, I mean, it's not stated if he's second or third rank in Organization 13 after Master Xehanort came in, but he has cemented himself as a threatening character. He has cemented himself throughout the entire series, more so than I would say than Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. So I would have to say he is an A tier, but before Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, surprisingly. He has definitely concreted himself well. Now, oh boy, this is going to be a deep character build-up for this guy. Oh, man. Okay, so here's the thing. He is Briggs, he is also Xigbar, and he is also Lushu. So he is 3 characters in one. My gosh, I don't know if Nomura planned this from the beginning or what, but my gosh, every single time we're talking about something that in regards talks about Xigbar, every dialogue he has said has referenced itself backwards, continuously, all the time. And even when we look at Briggs, his reference talk back all the time to Lushu. To think this whole entire time he had been Lushu, the unknown member of Union Cross, the secret member that was never given the Book of Prophecy. Instead, he was given the Keyblade, no name, along with a black box that we still don't know what's inside of it. He's going to play a big role in the future series, looking forward from here on out. But my gosh, do I really want to put him right next to frickin' Master Xehanort in the S tier? Because he's going to play a big role. He will be playing a big role in the future, along with the other 4 members as well. But I'm just going to put him right next to his master in the A tier, because he is definitely a crucial character that we're going to be seeing from here on out. Now then, let's talk about young Master Xehanort. Young Xehanort. The question is, do we want to talk about him whenever he was a member of the organization, or do we want to talk about his younger self? Let's talk about his younger self first. Really, not a lot to say. It's literally just an origin story of what he was going to become in the series, you know? Especially if you played the Union Cross app and if you played Dark Road. You would be familiar of who Xehanort technically is and all that stuff. Leading up to Organization 13. Shit, he's been a dick. Oh my gosh, he was a dick. He was a dick when he finally faded back into history. He was a major dick. Oh my gosh, he had meddled, he has messed with. He's worse than Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1. Holy shit. He did not give a shit. He was just like, fuck you. I'm sorry if I'm cussing at this point, but I'm just saying, that's literally his response. His response was, screw you, Sora. I'm gonna mess with your flippin' world, as well as your timeline. And he did. Oh, did he ever. Oh my gosh. We kind of recognize him a little bit more, I have to admit. Which is why I hate to say this, but he's either a B or an A tier. Yeah, he's an A tier. I hate to put him right there, but he is an A tier. He's pretty cemented there in terms of like his growth, as well as to who he was, who he has become, and who he eventually became. So this guy is second to the main one himself. So now let's talk about some of the other ones. So before we talk about the other 3, let's talk about Psyx. Psyx, who is Axel's, aka Lee friend, Isa. So It's funny too, it's funny. In Kingdom Hearts 2, he was pretty much concreted as just a member of Organization 13. Not Burst by Sleep. Well, we'll talk about him as a somebody later on. But as in Nobody in Dream Drop Distance, he still cemented himself as Organization 13. And in Kingdom Hearts 3, he was Organization 13 all the way through, except for one moment in time where Axel was at the clock tower in Twilight Town, and he meets up with Axel. That was a weird moment. A moment when they were both used to be friends, now enemies, now kind of like talking to each other in the moment before battle. It was a weird moment, but I think there was a small point in time where Psyx, aka Isa, still felt like being a friend to Axel. He knew that Axel was trying to fix himself, trying to get things fixed up and stuff like that. But he didn't know how to do it. Isa, on the other hand, is the brains of the two. He was the brains of the bunch whenever it was in Burst by Sleep, and it proves that. More so, too, in Kingdom Hearts 3. He had plans. He had ideals of his own of how he wanted to go about things and stuff of that nature. And I felt like some of them actually kind of went through. It was never actually brought up to the surface, but according to some people, Isa kind of pulled through. He kind of pulled through in order to help other people try to bring back. From Shion to Roxas. So in a weird way, he kind of redeemed himself. I hope we see more of him later on in the future, because to me personally, Isa's pretty good. Not only that, but he's got a pretty cool looking outfit next to Axel as well. So I'm going to put him as an A tier as well. But I'm going to tell you right now, he's kind of a back and forth guy, but he's also very tactical in that way. Now we got Vanitas, the dark side of Ventus. Personally, I thought he was okay. He kind of rivals up into the C category, I will admit on that one. There's not much to go on him aside from the fact that he is the dark essence of Ventus. So there you go. That's all we got. Now let's talk about the last three members of the Organization 13. Let's talk about Larcene. You know what the sad thing is? I want to put her as D just because of how much I hate her. She is a colossal bitch. But there's also the fact that she could be coming back in the later entry thanks to Union Cross's story, because she was a member in Union Cross as well, alongside with Marluxia, technically. I don't know what her somebody name is, I forgot, so you're going to forgive me on that one. But with that being said, Larcene, whenever she became a nobody, she was a bitch all the time. She was a bitch to Sora in Chain of Memories. She was a bitch to Sora in Flip and Kingdom Hearts 3. How the hell she maintained this character, I don't know. Because that's not her character as a somebody. Can you believe that? She's not a colossal bitch whenever Union Cross came about and stuff like that. When she became a nobody, she became a bitch. I don't understand it. I really don't. I really wish I knew, but I don't. So sadly, I'm going to have to put her as a D character just because of how much of a bitch I hate her. I really do. Marluxia. My gosh, this guy is all over the place. He's technically the leader in a group of characters that was in Castle Oblivion. He was trying to overpower the organization. He also became a surprising member in the second version of Organization 13. But he was also a leader in the Dandelions in Union Cross. How weird is that? He is also a brother to our mystery friend, Shriliza. Throughout Union Cross's story, ever since, oh crap, I forgot his somebody name again. Oh my gosh. Marluxia. Oh, help me out here. What is your somebody name? I wish I could remember now. All of a sudden, it's kind of faded out of my head again. Oh gosh, I hate that. But as his somebody, throughout Dandelion chapter of Union Cross, he's been searching for his sister, searching for her, trying to figure out what happened to her and everything. My gosh, was this guy dedicated to find his sister. And I don't blame him. If your sister disappeared, or brother for that matter, you're going to be hunting for them. You're going to be figuring out what happened to them, why did they disappear, and what has somebody done to them. Oh my gosh, this guy was driven nuts. So, let's see.
Secretly, I actually like Marluxia. There was actually a time that I didn't like him because of what he did in Castle Oblivion, trying to get Nominee to rewrite Sora's memories, to manipulate Sora in order to become his keyblade against the organization's Roxas. He was literally a sleazy slyball in Castle Oblivion's Chain of Memories. But in Kingdom Hearts 3, he was also a devious villain as well. But by the time Sora defeated him, he kind of had a soft spot. He kind of gained that eureka as to what he was and stuff. So, the way I see it, Marluxia's character could get better, actually. It could become better. So, I want to put him a little bit higher. Probably in the B category, actually, as a potential character to be like, you know what? I can't wait to see what he's going to do from here on out type character. You know what I mean? So, that's definitely something. Luxord is going to be in the A category for two main reasons. Number one, as a nobody organization member, he was cool. He was cool. He was collective. Oh my gosh. He was interesting. He didn't play that much of a significant role in Kingdom Hearts 2, but in Kingdom Hearts 3, he's peaked up a little bit more, actually, I feel like. He definitely has. And, you know, while we don't know much about him because of Union Cross, because, again, it is suggested that both Luxord and Demx were both part of the Keyblade War, as to how we don't know, as to what we don't know. But most of us think, we don't know. There's no guarantee factor. For all we know, it could be a voice cast choice. But for all we know, Luxord could be seen again in the future of Kingdom Hearts, specifically speaking, in another realm. Now, it's hard to say as to if this is true or not, but there was a driver that has Luxord's voice in it. So we don't know if that was really Luxord, or if that is a potential of a Luxord. So again, there's no telling as to what it is, but I like his character, I do. I also love him as a boss. As a boss, he is fun to fight. He is fun, and in a weird way, it feels random, but it's not. It's actually more organized in that sense of how the battle works. It's definitely a puzzle to fight him and everything like that. Both in Kingdom Hearts 2 and in Kingdom Hearts 1. I just love fighting him. He's a fun boss to fight in the organization and stuff. So, and as a character, he's fun as well, in my personal opinion. And now we come to the final character of this tier list, Yozora. Yozora. So, there's no telling as to what's going to happen from here on out, but from what most of us can gather, Yozora is going to play a big part in the story from here on out. He is literally in charge of what's going on with Sora, as to whether or not Sora had beaten him or had lost against him. We don't know where the story is going to play out, but we do know for a fact that Sora is stuck in the guy's head, or more specifically in his dream realm. So, right now Yozora is kind of out there, but from what we can gather, he's kind of a pet prodigy that Nomura is implanting in the series. And what from some of us can gather, Yozora is essentially going to be Nomura's revenge child against from what Square Enix has done. Because keep in mind, Nomura wanted to build Final Fantasy 15 differently. He wanted to build 15 something different. Unfortunately, he was cut from the project halfway through. Actually, a little bit further than halfway through now that I think about it. And now he wants revenge. He's like, well, if I can't get my freaking dream game that I want, damn it, I'm going to pull it from the Kingdom Hearts series. Because so far I've been allowed to do whatever I want in that game. So I'm going to see what I can do. And we got Yozora. So that's going to be interesting. What started out like a random video game character that appeared in the realm of Toy Story is now an actual character in the realms of Kingdom Hearts. And I say the realms because we don't even know what realm this is, because according to what is stated, that realm is fiction. Is that possible? I don't know, because again, we really don't know where the story's going to go from here on out, and I'm hoping this year, in the year 2022, we finally get clarification as to what Yozora is going to be and what that world of Quatanum is. So, he is going to be an A tier character as well, but for the time being, he's going to be at the front of A tier, right before the Master and everything of that nature, because it's going to go up. I imagine so. He was a hard character to beat. But he's also interesting considering the history of Nomura, but also considering what's going to happen in the future of the Kingdom Hearts series. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen from here on out. So there we have it. We have a tier list of Kingdom Hearts characters that I have created. It took forever to kind of decide on how I want to go about this and everything like that. And there's been kind of back and forth admittedly. But this is the tier list for Kingdom Hearts characters. In terms of the main characters, not including any Disney characters, no Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, no Final Fantasy characters like Cloud or Leon and stuff of that nature. It is just the main Kingdom Hearts cast character tier list. And oh boy, I'm gonna hear it in the comments below. I can imagine what you guys are gonna say. But this is kind of like what I felt about the characters in the history of Kingdom Hearts. And so, with that being said, this is it right here. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below, what do you feel about this list? Do you feel indifferent about it? Do you feel somewhat similar? And if so, create your own tier list. I believe the website that I've got is tiermaker.com. /create/Kingdom Hearts characters. Create your list and see what you think about it, you know? Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you guys later.